people love hearing that side of like guys who they see on screen, guys who they hear always talk about wrestling, just hearing like the inane stuff about like where you've been out to eat, what you enjoy, like how you diet, how you do all that stuff. So I think it's fascinating. Like hearing you being like what you're putting into those thoughts about training and stuff. I love all of that.
I mean, honestly, I can't really imagine like beforehand when I was like not earning great money and I was literally just trying to get by. Like I remember once upon a time I didn't have enough money to go to a gym, so like I was this skinny progress champion and like had no muscle or anything. So like now like being able to like make those changes in my body and like try and like my best to like maintain the physique that I do have, and like I really do feel like I've like tried my best to like look as good as I can for Wembley, especially with all the Disney World food and all the Greek food that I had. It was like, but I'm trying my best, eh?
It is amazing to me. We were talking about this a little earlier as well, that you, with the deal you've got with AEW and the fact you're still living out here in the UK, you're flying out, you're doing a show, you're flying back. You know, we know that you were used to it from going to and from Japan as well, but how are you able to like handle that whole situation and be able to still be at your top peak condition?
I mean, it's a struggle. Like, I won't lie to people. It is real hard, but like I don't mind the flights at all, because like life is genuinely constant noise, like whether it's AEW and like the stress that comes around like being a TV wrestler, or going home and the stress of being like a parent and like the noise that comes with it, and like trying to have this like balance in life between social, family, and like it is such a hard task. But just like those times that I do get on the plane, it is almost like a little bit of meditation to be grateful for all these things that I do have. But like I do find myself like I'm so happy in this position. I'm just like so grateful to have this life.
I think what blew my mind is you were talking about the sponsor meals and going out and enjoying yourself in Japan, and like, you know, going out with the boys, having some drinks, or going out for food and all this great stuff you were eating, and talking about not knowing what you're doing going to a show afterwards. And so sometimes you might, you know, enjoy yourself a bit much and then suddenly be told, and I was listening to it and I'm going, hey, I've watched entire G1s or Super Juniors. You don't have a match sub 25-30 minutes. That's what kind of blows my mind about it. It's just like, this isn't, you're going to TV and you're doing a 4 or 5 minute squash and then you're done, you're fine.
I haven't done a 4 or 5 minute squash, mate. I don't know if you've actually noticed that all, but like ever since I've come here, I don't think I've done a match that's gone. I feel like all my matches have been at least like 12 or 15 minutes. So like I'm like working hard for these ones. But dude, when we was doing the G1, and it would be like do a show in that flipping hot arena. Like most of those Japanese buildings aren't aircon. They are like very, very hot in the summer. And then you'd be done, but you still be wide awake. So then you go on your sponsor meal, and then you just be drinking beer and like drinking sex on the beach and having like a good time partying with everyone. You'd fall asleep. It'd be about 4 a.m. You wake up 8 a.m. Get on the bus. You pass out on the bus. You'd get to the next place and do the same thing over and over again. The G1 is no joke, mate.
Yeah, I was always impressed with, and you talked about being the skinny Progress champion. I remember watching you coming up in Progress and Rev Pro and being at those shows back in like the kind of mid 2010s and seeing your transformation into what we saw. That we obviously saw the talent that you had, but like that step up that you had during your time in New Japan was so impressive. To then hear that you are also living the life. In my mind, you were this clean living, like we had Bryan Danielson in. So in my mind, you were like vegan, going to bed early, reading books.
Can't be vegan on Nando's, bruv. Can't do that, mate.
Like that's it. Like I had this in my mind of, oh, you must have gone there and just become this temple of
health.
Yeah, exactly.
Mate. Never, but like. No, but the majority of Japan food, right, is just like red meat, rice, like or like chicken, so or sushi. So you constantly like it's decent food, you know what I mean? It's decent for your body and everything. But just like Japan, really, like because of the locker room that I was surrounded by. Like I was in the locker room with guys like Okada, with guys like Ishii. I was wrestling guys like Jay White. I was surrounded by guys like Juice Robinson, who like all of these like well traveled and like veterans from like past and present. And it was just a case of like, okay, I don't know anything, so teach me. And I just applied myself into this manner. And like, I can't be like thankful enough for that locker room, because that 2019, like, even to be fair, I came in the golden age where like Kenny Omega was on top. And that Kenny Omega run was, iconic. Like in 2017, I don't think anybody was touching Kenny Omega. So like being in the locker room and like watching him wrestle, it was just like I was just studying constantly. It was just one of those ones. And then when I moved to Japan in 2019, that was truly applying myself to the job. It was like I'd wake up, I'd go to the gym, I'd eat foods, I'd then travel all the way. And it's like, it's not like AEW, it's like every Wednesday. It's most days of the week. We'd do like a 3-week tour and we'd wrestle like 18 of the days. So like, but like as crazy it is, but it was real good for you because you learn how to like not only like master the art of like learning how to like rise a Japanese crowd at the right points, but it was such a great experience to connect with that audience and connect with all the wrestlers because like it just became like a bond and a brotherhood out there.
What was it like for you when you say you step into that locker room and you named some unbelievable names there, and obviously that, you know, Okada Omega run was insane, that kind of series of major matches that they had, but for you to then, as you built up to step up to that level and start facing those guys, you know, Tokyo Dome headline shows and stuff like that, like how did you feel stepping into that position? Did you feel ready at the time, and how much did those guys help you get into that position?
Well, like when I wrestled Shingo Takagi at the Best of Super Juniors, because I was planning on moving to Japan because it was at the time it was the right thing to do. Like I feel like I was 8 months out of the year I was there, so I just thought you might as well just live here, and then every now and again I could pop over to Australia, I could pop over to England, I can do America. But I'll be honest with you, as I started getting good, like 2019, I really felt like I was entering a different animal. Like I felt like I was just a little spring, right? It was when 2020 hit and the pandemic hit, and it was just kind of like no one prepared New Japan for this, and no one could prepare what was going to happen because the crowds were just silent. And then like you would travel to Japan, it'd be like it used to be a 12-hour flight, but then turned into 15 because there's a war going on in Russia and Ukraine, so we had to go underneath it. You get to the country, you'd have a doctor's note saying you haven't got COVID. They still test you for COVID, even though you didn't have COVID. You then go into a hotel room for 2 weeks. You weren't allowed outside. The window opened about like 3 centimeters. So then they would only give you like tray foods, like literally, and like, so you better like the Japanese food, or otherwise you're not going to eat. Sometimes you would get Uber Eats, but most of the time you wouldn't. Then when you go out there, like all the wrestlers were out of shape, and then like it would be like you'd wrestle at about like 6:30, you'd end the show at 9, the restaurants would be closed by 8, so then most of your roster was starved. But like New Japan struggled at that point, but somehow, some way, in all of the restrictions, in all of the silence, we still found a way to manage to like give New Japan like a little bit more of like a spotlight to show these like incredible matches. And like I do put it down to Shingo Takagi, I do put it down to all the foreigners that sacrificed their time away from their family to be there. Like there's a guy over there called Robbie Eagles who spent 7 months away from his missus. Like I could not imagine the stress that you could under, and it was a lot of stress for everyone. A lot of us like felt the need to be like, you know, we need to take a step back because this is getting too much for us. But then to like come back and to see New Japan now, and they're getting back to it, it's like that's what made me feel like a better wrestler, because like we all had to band together to put on these matches and to like lean on one another to make sure that we're all okay.
I'm so glad you mentioned that Shingo run, because absolutely unbelievable like series from him.
He does not get the credit he deserves, man. And like New Japan, like I say it all the time, but he is literally the best wrestler there right now. There is no one touching, especially Zach as well, I will say that. But he is literally the best wrestler there. His speed, his endurance, his longevity in wrestling has been otherworldly.
I did not intend to just come in here and talk about New Japan and health for the first 10 minutes, but it just kind of...
No, but honestly, I know
like,
you said like we got to be done by like after 10. We don't. Like we can continue it. Like
right.
Let's continue talking for a bit.
Love that. Absolutely love that. But we have got to talk about AEW at Wembley this weekend. Talk to me first about coming back last year, coming back to wrestle in the UK. You know, you're not signed with the company at that point, but you come in as a loanee, I guess, you know, with all the Forbidden Door stuff that was happening. Just talk me through that process of being a guy that used to wrestle in front of, you know, anywhere from 10 to 200 people in little shows in London and Essex to suddenly being out there in front of 80,000 people at Wembley.
Mate, I cannot describe to you the phone call when it was just kind of like, we need you to go against Jericho at Wembley Stadium. And then when you're seeing the tickets go up and up and up, and you're just like, flipping out, it's a lot of people. Like, I mean, like the day before I wrestled in front of 4,000 people, so it's like, weren't even 5% of what the attendance was, right?
Just to be clear on that, by the way, RevPro running a 4,000 people copper box
insane.
is insane.
Insane.
Like, I remember Progress doing Wembley was an absolute like peak, it felt, of British kind of independent wrestling, but to run 4,000 on a weekend like this was in itself mind-blowing.
It's a gamble as well on RevPro, right? So it's all credit to them for doing that. But then doing AEW, right, I felt so like, oh man, like I feel bad because there's so many guys that do deserve this spot, but Tony's given me his trust and I can't break this trust. So I need to go out there and I need to smash this out of the park. I need to go out that park, catch the ball, bring it back to him and say, line me up for another one, son. But like, I cannot express to you enough like how grateful I am to be given that responsibility and being put in that position, because I could have easily, right? Let's think about it. He could have easily done that. I could have got my win and I could have gone elsewhere. He gave me that trust and I refused to break that trust. So like, this is why this time round is super important to me, because like now I've come back, I'm a full-time member of the AEW roster, and like I want to show people that like this scene, this country can provide AEW with some of the best fans, some of the best moments if we just like, if we really link to them and we really give our country like a good platform for good professional wrestling. And I really do believe Tony's going to do that. Like with Wembley Stadium, it's going to be insane.
For you, when you made that decision to go from Japan and end up being in AEW, and obviously there was all talk about you maybe landing elsewhere, and every company in the world wants to sign Will Ospreay at that point, but how much of that Wembley show of Tony, I know you just talked about that trust, but how much of that came into you knowing that AEW was the place for you to go?
I feel like as soon as like I'd done it, I remember coming back and like you've seen Endgame, haven't you, Avengers, where Iron Man's like on his way out, right, and then Pepper comes over and goes, "You can rest now." And I remember being like, oh, man, I'm like feel like I'm resting, but then there's that moment afterwards where I'm with my family and I just thought like, now this is only the start, man. Like this has to continue, this like ride that I'm on, and like I trust Tony. And like, it's very hard for me to trust anyone. And it's very hard for me to leave Japan behind because that was my family. But like, Tony has given me his trust to take the ball and run with it. So that moment of like, dude, I can't even tell you this, right? Imagine 4,000 people the day before. I'm sitting there, I'm going, no one's going to know who the bloody hell I am. But like, at the very best, they're going to see the the British flag and go, England, like, do you know what I mean? And as I was walking down, I can hear people singing the song. And I was like, this is insane. And I was like, I know this is the part where I'm going to point to the sky. And I'm pointing at the sky, man, and I'm seeing the Wembley Arch and I'm seeing the fireworks shoot over. And I just think of like the time that my mum and dad bought a wrestling ring in my garden when I was 14 years old because I was getting in trouble on the streets, just to try and keep me off the streets. And I'm just thinking like, from there, like my dad driving me up in Newcastle and back in one day, I'm thinking about like my mum's taking a steel chair off the bad guy at a wrestling show that I was at because she didn't want to see me get hurt. And all these little journeys that have just made me a man today. And I'm just thinking, this is a dream. Like, this doesn't happen. Like, think of like some of the most iconic wrestling names ever. They haven't wrestled in Wembley Stadium. I have. Some kid from like Essex is wrestling in Wembley Stadium. It's otherworldly, and I need to fulfill my promise to Tony that I'm going to do my best here.
Absolutely love it. I talk a little bit about MJF and this match this weekend, because that moment of, if you do get the win on Sunday and if you do get the kind of the hometown pop, we see the babyface goes over, we get that full moment, and you get to raise a belt in front of 50,000-60,000 Brits who have turned out in attendance for you. How great is it for you that you've been able to build that story with someone like Maxwell, where it has been such a clear line? And I mean, those promos at Cardiff on Wednesday were sensational. That actually had me going. It
took my breath away being back in Cardiff, but like I don't like look towards it like with like, okay, like this is what's going to happen, because anything can happen. Like something can go, like touch wood, something can go wrong in that match and something can go completely left field. But like doing this whole story and actually having, like, this is the first time ever I've been on American TV and it's good guy, bad guy. And it was just that moment in Cardiff where I was like, and I'll say it now, I've never been confident with my promo abilities and my microphone work. But the moment I was just like, call me Barry Scott, bang, and like they all said it, I was like, I oh my God, I'm a promo guy now. Like I couldn't believe it. I was just like, not only can I like go in the ring, I'm a guy on the microphone now. I know all the Yanks will probably just be like, we have no idea what this means. Like even Excalibur said, like, I'm gonna have to research that one. But like, it's turned into this thing now where I've learned so much from being opposite Max, and like whatever anybody thinks about Max, like, and I've got a lot of things that I do generally feel about him. He is generational. He is everything that what all these legends and all these analysts do say. He's a generational talent. But like being opposite it, I've learned so much, and I'm just willing and ready to do whatever it takes to give everyone that euphoric moment of seeing the English boy restore the international championship, raise it above my head, and just celebrate with every single British person there that has ever wanted professional wrestling to succeed over here.
My wife only has a passing interest in wrestling. Like every now and again there'll be like a storyline or something, because I'm on it all the time. Every now and then there'll be a storyline, there'll be a person. I do love it, but she'll get like engaged with little bits and pieces of it. And like actually last year I missed All In last year because we were on holiday in Mexico. Trust me, still to this day not happy about it, but we did go to Arena Mexico while we were there, and I took her to a CML show, and that was unreal. Like,
what's the atmosphere like in there?
We were there for a family show, and the atmosphere was still absolutely insane. Like, it was probably only maybe a half, close to 2/3 full, and because it was a family show, there was a lot of like the little people wrestling and stuff like that. But honestly, it still was absolutely popping. And like when the legends did come out, they really did go for it, and like it was incredible. But I on Thursday morning was like, look, I know wrestling isn't your thing, but this feels like a line for me regularly. I don't, but watch this one thing. And she's normally expecting me to show her some move.
Here we go again.
Someone doing something crazy athletic or jumping off the top of a cage or something. And it was me showing her the Barry Scott line, because I was just like, how can somebody get away with making a Sillet Bang reference in professional wrestling? What, 25 years after that advert was probably popular?
But like, think about it, it's still instilled in our minds. Do you know what I mean? Those adverts and everything, they're still instilled in our minds. And like that, I think some of those things, like, they just unite us as a country, because like, all right, I love the in-betweeners, right? Yep. Every time you hear someone go friends, what do you do? Oh, friends. Like, and do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, as a country, it's just something like I want to unite us all, and especially because a country right now, like, I don't get into politics, I don't get into whatever, but like, I'm scared right now, like things are going on right now, so having that moment of just being like bang, and having some joy and having some funny things that go, just be like, oh man, we're all in it together, do you know what I mean? We're united.
I popped really hard for it, and I'm just saying, if there's some kind of reference to it on Sunday, if there's some way of bringing it back round, because, you know, we know the Nando's gimmick is good fun and people will always get into that, but I think the Sillet Bang has to become at least a thing here, if not worldwide.
Is Sillet Bang still a thing?
I think you can still get it.
Right, here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to buy a Sillet Bang, put it under the ring, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the international title when I beat him, and I'm going to spray it and clean it, bang, and the international title is back.
I've got to Google Barry Scott. I have no idea. Barry Scott recording artist is what it comes up as when you search it. That can't be the right guy.
But like, it's not his real name, right?
No,
Barry
it's
Scott
not.
Isn't, like,
it's an advertisement. That's really
makes me so sad.
Yeah, I thought he was really called Barry Scott. Oh.
That must be like a bit of a downfall for him. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's finally got over. He's finally famous. And it's just like, Barry, we don't need you no more. And it's like, well, can I at least keep the name? No. Like, mate, if I was Barry Scott, I would change my name to Barry Scott.
Yeah, 100%. Done. It's only 80 quid with Depol or something. We had Brian Danielson sat in that chair, 2 weeks ago
The GOAT, brother.
Yeah. And the GOAT. Like, this is the other reason. So when having the discussion and the debate with my wife about whether, with the twins at home, I go to the show on Sunday, it's like, well, I didn't get to go last year, and it might be Brian's last match, and I have been lucky enough to see him at like real keystone moments through that career, and get to go and see him in some big matches. What was it to you to be able to put on that absolute epic on TV and then get the response that it got from everywhere?
Long before wrestling fans put their one finger in the air, I, as a child, watched Brian Danielson march to the ring to the tune of Europe's Final Countdown. And it just feels right that the greatest wrestler that has ever lived is marching down the most iconic stadium in our country one more time to reclaim the throne as the best wrestler in the world. Like, Swerve and Brian are going to tear the house down. I feel it in my flipping heart, man. But like having that moment with him, man, standing opposite him, the bell not even rung yet, and everyone is on their feet, and then stepping back. Like before I step back, if you look at my lips, I look at him and go, "This is going to be a pleasure, sir." And I watch back, and I had this moment of just like, I felt like I scored the World Cup goal before I even started wrestling him. And like those moments where you're just like, you just got to do this bit, you got to do this bit. And I remember when we done like a little back and forth bit at the opening, and they all stood up, I was like, we fucking got him, son. Like, I was so like, let's go. I love Bryan Danielson so much. I love his enthusiasm for professional wrestling. I love how he handles himself backstage. I love the maturity. It is something I've inspired myself. I've modelled myself around Bryan Danielson, of travelling around the world, knocking on the door of the toughest guy of the country and saying, come out here and let me whoop your ass in front of everybody. He is, without a doubt, like the standard bearer of AEW, the team captain of AEW. The fact that this is going to be his last year, somebody needs to step up into that spot. And I don't know if it is me, but like I'm damn sure willing to give it a try, because if he can do the things that he's done for AEW, so can everybody else.
I love what you said about his love and enthusiasm for it. Obviously, you're following his footsteps, not veganism, of course.
No, I can't, mate.
Just in case
I
Nando's and the Black Card team are listening.
I admire it. I just can't do it. I love Nando's too much.
It's same with Pete Dunne. Like, I don't understand how that guy can have the physique he has without eating like carbs and meat and stuff like that. It's
mate,
just
like,
unbelievable.
And dude, once again, shout out to Pete Dunne, wonderful human being, dude. But like, come on, man, have a fish finger.
But when we sat here and we had that conversation, the whole kind of gimmick of the interview was, because it's the retirement year, we're going to go over 5 or 10 of your biggest moments, biggest matches, and I just want you to give me your memory. Like, I'm not asking a question, I'm asking, just letting you do it. And I tell you, the things he popped for hardest were you and Zach. Those are the two things that he really was like, because I said we were running out of time, and I'm like, look, I really wanted to ask you about Zack Sabre Jr., but I don't know if we're going to have time. And he stopped me and went, no, we're going to talk about those two matches, and we ran over by about 15 minutes in the end.
Yeah, mate, like, honestly, let's keep going. Like, honestly, though, Bryan, for me, like, having that adulation, I've actually got it, like the quote that he has, and I screenshotted it and put it on my phone, because I've got a photo of us when we're like corner to corner at the Dynasty show, and I'm gonna frame it and I'm gonna print that off and I'm gonna put it next to it, because like I get emotional talking about it, man. But like, he's generally like one of like my favourite human beings ever, and like I've only known him for a year, like actually like shook hands with him and like met him, but like he's done so much for the industry, man, and like. I've had like some of like the most emotional moments within wrestling, and he's been at the forefront of it. Like when he won the world title, cried. When he retired, cried. When he came back, cried. And it's just like, man, like here it is again. Like I don't know where I am in the card it all in, but like I know the moment I am done, I'm gonna find somewhere on the floor. Like I'm going out as a fan to watch Bryan Danielson one more time walk down that ramp and just reclaim that spot as the best wrestler in the world, man.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Big news, AEW seemingly confirmed overnight. Ricochet coming to the company, supposedly. I think worst kept secret, but certainly Fightful, etc., reporting that it's a done deal now. If it is a done deal, let's say speculatively.
Okay, let's say if it is.
Let's say if it is. We talked Best of Super Juniors earlier. Like, that for me was a moment in your career where it went from me being like, oh, you've got to check this guy out, British indie scene guy, to like people really started to take notice. So that's got to be something you've got to be excited to get back and run back if possible. It's
changed, like that whole match kind of changed my perspective on wrestling. It changed my like output and like how people viewed me, right? But I feel like him coming in now, right? It's one of those things where we done that match and we went off on our separate journeys, right? And now we're coming back together again. And for me now, it's just like, this is your chance now. This is your chance to show people, like, because look around, boss. Look at this generation of wrestlers, and like, look what everybody is doing when it comes to like that athletic style of pro wrestling, right? It's him. He is the guy that did it. And he's just got to find that fire within himself because he knows he can do it. I honestly feel like he's just been downplayed for so bloody long that people have forgotten the freak athlete that he is. So if it is true, and if he is coming to AEW, I am calling you out to remind everybody because you were, without a shadow of a doubt, were the man. Dragon Gate, PWG, the indies around the world, no one could. I'm calling you out, bruv. I am saying, remind the world that you are one of the best who have ever done. I believe it. And if I believe it, you've got to believe in yourself now, boss.
Love it. Absolutely love it. For people who, there are still tickets available for Sunday, for anyone who's listening to this, watching this and undecided. They can't be after you've just talked about both your match and the idea of going to watch Brian do his last ever match. Like,
Can I sell him this one
please,
thing?
Please.
Right?
You've just gone promo mode for
I
me
know,
once.
right, but I've got to sell him on this, man. Like, listen to me now. 14-year-old kid, right? I was getting in so much trouble, and my mum and dad bought me a professional wrestling ring to put in the garden. Not a real one, they got a fabricator to do it, right? 14 years old. I've had this dream since I was 14 years old. This isn't just about wrestling. This is about life. This is, if you've ever wanted to do something ever in your life, follow it, strive for it, go for it. I've wrestled in social clubs where there's a projection screen literally eye level to me. I've gone up and down this country. I got knocked out in Kent and I drove myself home. My dad found me at 4 a.m. in the morning, not knowing where I was, and my dad said, from this day on, I'm going to drive you to your show, so that way if you do get a knock, you're not going to have to drive home, because you shouldn't have done that. My dad has supported me so much throughout this journey. My mum has had my back so much for this journey. I've gone to Japan, and all of those guys took a 22-year-old kid that didn't know who he was and helped grow him up into a man. I have travelled all over the world. I've got my heart broken. My missus and my child have completely changed my life around, saved my life, got me back. I am under the scope of the greatest wrestlers in the world. I am in the locker room with the most elite wrestlers in the world, and here I am going for a major championship, and I am nervous, I am scared, and I want that support. I want my country. I want everyone, from their mums, their dads, their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, their stepdaughters, their stepsons. I want them all to come to Wembley Stadium, because this is about living a flipping dream that I've had since I was 14 years old, and I can't do it alone. If you can, AEWTix.com, look for it, Wembley Stadium, all in. I beg of you, every single person that listens to this, please come and support me, because I need you there to get me over the finish line.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.